Hey guys, Avery Carl from the Short Term Shop here. I wanted to welcome you into our 10 episode deep dive on the Outer Banks and Carolina Beach, but also to let you know that we have some supplemental materials to this on our website for you guys. It's called theshorttermshop.com. And there we have a section where you can look at properties in these markets, see what the current purchase prices are. You can set it up to save a search for you and email you anytime a new property in those markets in your price range comes out. We also have the AirDNA data, thanks to our friends over at AirDNA for this market. So you can use those two things to analyze. We've got a calculator for you there too to help tie it all together. And if you guys are ready to maybe start talking to an agent in this market, you can email us at agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will connect you to our expert agents in this market. Or maybe you're not ready to do that, but you just want to hang out with us more. And that's cool because we want to hang out with you too. And we have a Facebook community where you can do that. It's called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth, same title as my book. And it's just a community of 60,000 of our closest friends who are sharing best practices and just kind of hanging out with other real estate investors. So it's pretty cool. And we hope to see you over there. And last but not least, if you have questions, you want to talk to a real person like myself, it will be myself actually, and Luke. We have an open office hours every Thursday, and you can sign up for that at strquestions.com, and you can ask us any questions that you have about short-term rental investing. But now we'll get to the episode.
Short-term show, special episodes. We are in the beaches of North Carolina, and today the subject is pricing, calendars, availability, and minimum night stay, everything it takes to get a property booked, in my opinion. Well, let's just give an overview there. Joe, I'll go to you next. And then Meg, this is, to me, the most important part of the business, the most overlooked part for a lot of folks that are not succeeding, in my opinion. You can always go straight to the calendar and find flaws. What are we doing wrong? I personally see the biggest mistake I see is when people price things way too high because they ran a bunch of numbers and they decided that their average price per night was XYZ, and they think it's going to get that nightly rate in November, and it's just not, So again, I'm not trying to say lower your prices, lower your prices, lower your prices. It's not a race to the bottom, but you've got to spend some time on it. Joe, what are your thoughts?
Oh yeah. Like knowing your calendar. I mean, it's your highest dollar per hour task that you can do across the board, and knowing your peaks and your valleys. It's just being more active on your calendars will make you more money than anything else in this once you've set up a awesome listing, which we've talked about this whole time. And so that's the gist of it, is know this like the back of your hand and you will be successful.
Yep. Meg, anything to add?
Yeah. I mean, it's not a set it and leave it, like you have to get in there and play with it, massage it and compare, enemy method, with your pricing and know your seasons, your local agent, me on the Outer Banks and Joe down in Carolina Beach. We can help you with, the busy seasons and the calendars, and we can help you with that.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. I don't want to be shy there. I do want to be perfectly clear that the Short-Term Shop sells houses. That's exactly what we do. We're proud of it. Not trying to hide that fact. And speaking of, we have Leah and Omar. Great time to introduce you. You have purchased a home with the shop, but you have rentals of other types of assets, long-term rentals, etc. So great to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Hi, thanks for having us. We appreciate it. I'm Leah.
Omar.
We are clients of the Short-Term Shop. Joe helped us buy our first short-term rental last summer. We've been running it for about 14 months in Carolina Beach. Going well. And then we do own a handful of long-term rentals as well. And it's kind of our story.
Okay.
Why we're here.
And we were talking briefly earlier. You are still a fan of the long-term rentals. Yes. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. We'd like to get some more of both.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I do think that it is a good idea. I love my long-term rentals. They are not sexy. Nobody gives a crap about them. No, if you talk about them at the Thanksgiving dinner table, nobody wants to hear about it. Everybody wants to hear about that beach house. But man, those long-term rentals, they just chug on down the road, and they make $200-300, and then the water heater dies and you lose a whole year. But who cares? You just keep going. We're in this for the long haul. But you're also being modest. Joe tells me you guys are total rock stars. So We're going to dive into that more as we start talking about calendars. And I'll stay with you, Leah and Omar. What are you seeing? Well, I guess tell me what size your property is. We need to before I can even ask you any questions. Let's get a decent picture of what your personal property looks like. And of course, Meg and Joe have all sorts of expertise. But what is your property?
We have a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 900 square foot condo, oceanfront.
Oceanfront condo. Okay, so then let me ask you, what are you seeing for an average duration of how many nights on an average stay, give or take?
So it's definitely seasonal. In the summer, actually, we get full week stays. It's actually required by our HOA to have our condo HOA. I don't think that they would actually enforce it because, to be honest, I had a calendar faux pas this year and nobody noticed.
Mm-hmm.
They do actually require full week stays in the summer, June, July, and August.
3 months.
The 3 months, yeah. And then the rest of the year, you can do whatever you want. And we get a good split. I would say it's about half the stays are 2-night stays. And then the other half, we do still get a little bit longer. People stay 3, 4, 5 nights.
Let me come back to that. Joe, how common is that in your market? Is it something I need to look out for?
Yeah, extremely common to have kind of that mindset on booking quality. So like
I'm talking about the 7 day thing.
Right. 7 to 7 is pretty rare on being required from an HOA, but they're only limiting it to like the peak months. So like Memorial Day to Labor Day is really like your peak time anyway. And so the cool part about their HOA is like that really falls in that time when you can demand those bookings anyway, and it's going to book either way because they're oceanfront. They've got pretty much the highest in demand property on the island. And so they're going to get those bookings either way. In fact, in my opinion, that actually maximizes their revenue for that because you're going to have less turnovers, a more of a net number. But then they switch to as you're coming to the shoulder seasons because everything here is a bell curve. We peak in June and July, and then it comes down on both sides, down from like a revenue standpoint. But that's really where you maximize your 3-night stays, your 2-night stays. Like even some of my properties, I do 1-night stays whenever I fill individual gaps. And so it lines up really well with how to maximize their gross income. But it is rare to have an HOA that requires you to do 7-night minimums.
So in their particular building, is it almost like, hey, if you want, it sounds like this is like probably one of the most desirable ones. Is that safe to say?
Yeah. I mean, like oceanfront 2 bedrooms are rare.
Leah's like, no. But well, I guess let me ask you this.
I think there's nicer buildings on the island.
Okay.
So I wouldn't say it's nice. I love our condo. I'm not trying to diss on it, but it's I think there are even nicer complexes.
Was it a decent? It was a lower purchase price, so it was decent. Where were we on the?
It's oceanfront, so it was.
Yeah,
it's oceanfront is high demand no matter where you're at. Like,
yeah,
and it's kind of that
pool, so that makes it high demand too. People definitely want the pool.
When you purchased it, was the 7-day thing an issue for you, or you didn't care, or what? Did it get discussed?
I don't think we cared. I think it just seemed like, okay, that's what they do here.
Okay,
and it gets booked. So we were given the previous owner's information. She had been running it herself, the previous owner, and she had 100% occupancy for the summers for the last 3 years before we bought it. So I don't think we were worried.
And your June, like let's say this past summer, your June, July, August was completely booked.
Yep.
So in that aspect, it seems like that would maybe even make your life a little easier because you're only dealing with 12 guests through the entire summer.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I'm kind of jealous of that because, even my big beach properties, I'm sitting there cranking at least twice as many guests as you are. And in that time of the year, these folks they can be a little bit needy. Yeah. So you can it's almost like you get a groove going with one of these guests because they're in there for 7 days and then you move on to the next one. And,
better or worse.
I'm going off in the weeds here because you're making me think like in the high summer, when the prices are really high, it's almost like I'm talking each one of these guests into thinking that my house is awesome. It's almost like you're having to sell it to them even after they've bought it, and I'm kind of jealous that you only have to do that 12 times. That's pretty cool. Okay, cool. Meg, let's talk about yours. Anything like that in your market? What are we seeing for just an average night stay?
So regarding the number of days that people are seeing. Obviously, the bigger properties are if you're gonna have a huge family that's gonna come, multiple generations coming in, that family's gonna be there for a week. It's not unusual to see 2 weeks booked by one family. I think anything more than that, these people are probably going to own the house and they're not renting it out anyway. The smaller properties, you can probably get away with doing a 3 to 4 night minimum stay without having too much trouble, with the nights in between that are not rented. Especially in the summertime, like Joe said, it's the same thing here on the Outer Banks that it is, down in Carolina Beach. People want to be here. So if they want that 3 or 4 days, they're going to go ahead and come on a Wednesday and stay through Sunday or, however they rent it. It's just, I think every house is variable here. And everybody does things a little bit differently, but that's when it comes down to being really active in your listing in whatever platform you've got your property. You need to be in there and constantly fixing things and filling in those gap nights. And, if you've got 2 or 3 nights that are open, try to extend your guests who are already there to extend their stays. Luke talks a lot about this in his Management Mondays, helping with, issues like that. But bigger families are going to stay longer. If you've got a 2 or 3 bedroom, you might want to, open up the opportunity to have, a 4 or 5 night stay.
Wonderful. Well, Joe, give me a speech on weekend pricing versus weekday pricing. Do you have a strategy there, or you just kind of wait to see what happens?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, I love to manipulate my weekends. So I like to force people to stay at least 3 nights. And I always raise those rates for my weekends because they're premium nights. Like, people want to come for the weekend and enjoy their stay. And again, like similar, it depends on the peak time that you're doing this. So in the summer, I'll demand a little bit longer. And if it's like over the holidays and whatnot, I mean, sometimes I even force people to stay 5, 6 nights over like the real peak times on our calendar. But in general, you're going to see almost 25 to 30% more on your weekends, I'd say, from like your normal weekday rates. And then I do like to stack reviews a lot. So I like to roll a lot of people through my properties and get higher occupancy. And so that's just how I prefer to manage, because I want mine pushed higher in the algorithm. And so, like I said, I'll do like 1 night minimums if I have random breaks or if I can't get someone to book that extra night. But in general, you're going to see lower rates Monday through Thursday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can really push those rates higher.
No, I agree. I see a lot of folks say things like, and not necessarily in your market, but just in general, is they say, well, I'm only getting my weekends booked. How do I get nobody wants to book my weekdays. And my thing there is like, well, you're not pricing it right. It's a pretty good chance you price your weekend too low. They're thinking of it the other way around. Nobody's going to book my weekdays. They get all, and listen, negativity is not going to get you anywhere in this biz. You gotta get out there and get it. You got to get it. Right. So to me, it's like, well, you probably priced your weekend a little too low with a combination of your weekdays being too high. I've never thought about that. I've never worried about that. On beach properties, mountain properties, doesn't matter. Ever since day one, back in the day, I used to be like, oh, the weekends should be more expensive than the weekdays. And I never really thought about it too much. I just kind of let them fall in place. I mean, there's been periods of time where I'll price the entire month at the same price. I mean, that's a really weird example. It's not common, but it will happen. And then, it's usually going to be pretty far in advance that I do that. Like right now, I would have no problem right now going on really any of my properties and putting the month of January at the same price for the whole thing, But then as you get closer, I mean, even like 3 or 4 weeks closer, because we're recording this, I should mention 1st of September, right? So keep that in mind is what I'm getting at for January. As you get closer, you got to get in there and work what's left over, So maybe if you're doing the entire month, and I don't even know why I would do the whole month of January at a low rate, maybe just because I want, or not at a low rate, but at one rate, maybe just to keep it from, like, if I'm using Price Labs and I don't want January to go too high, I'll just manual override. Or you could also, that used to be more common. Today, you can just override and do like a 15% decrease, and then it will have, it'll take into consideration weekends on its own, and it will also do like high demand events or something like that if there are any. Back in the day, though, we didn't have any of that stuff. So it would be very common where I would just, drag and drop January and February at one rate for the whole damn thing. And then as it gets closer, wiggle it around, move it around. Tim calls it tickling, So what are your thoughts there, Leah, for the naysayers on getting weekdays booked?
I feel like in the shoulder season, we get more weekdays booked than I thought we were going to get, to be honest. They even sometimes book up before our weekends. And maybe because they're cheaper, because we do exactly that. We use Price Labs, and Price Labs kind of automatically makes your weekends more and your weekdays cheaper. All our weekends do book up in the shoulder seasons. But we get plenty of midweek stays. People come in, they just, more than we even thought, like people just come in the middle of the week.
Well, you're making it sound too easy.
It's not easy. I mess with, I listen to you and I mess with Price Labs like incessantly.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. I mean, that's what it takes.
I'm in there constantly. In the off season, man, there was a lot of black lines on my calendar, and off season, because, we started in the middle of last summer. So we went into the off season with not a lot of reviews, and we were slow. It was tough and trying to like get the bookings rolling. I was in there like constantly, and I would go into the heart trading thread and heart as many people. You didn't have the wish list Wednesday yet. Yeah. So I would go into the trading thread and I would heart as many people as I could. I'd be like, come on, get this moving. So
the old
that's
school.
What I did my first off season.
Old school. That's old school. We had the heart trading thread because we got to the play. Here's what happened. I'm going to give you a little short-term shop history now that Leah's bringing it up because I appreciate that and the progress of the business. We got to the point where in our Facebook groups, people were just constantly posting their listings and saying, can you give me a heart? Can you like my listing? Because that does, and Airbnb is really kind of not that shy about that. The more hearts you can get, the more people. You just click the heart button on a listing. It helps the listing. Airbnb says, oh, people are paying attention to this one. Makes you more popular. So we started a thread way back in the day, the heart trading thread. If you want hearts, post it here and then heart everybody else. And then eventually, of course, we started the listing advice group. It's the evolution of the short-term shop here. Appreciate you so much for knowing what that stuff is. All our hard work over the years. That's really cool. I totally forgot my train of thought because you just made me feel so good. My heart is warm and fuzzy. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. Do you have any concern? Or now looking back at it, tell me, for somebody that's buying in this market, you're in Carolina Beach. Are you in Carolina Beach or just somewhere in that area?
Yes, we're in Carolina Beach.
In Carolina Beach? Okay. Somebody wants to buy in Carolina Beach or OBX this time of year. I think this sounds like about when you bought last year. What's your advice there for folks that say, oh man, I can't carry it through the winter, or like it's a stupid time to buy in the fall? Because I disagree for many reasons, but I'd like to hear your take on that.
I would say make sure you have reserves so you can carry it just in case, because that definitely was one of our concerns. One of my other things is I would actually say don't be afraid to go low. I actually think we could have done even better if we the enemy method, I kind of stalk Joe's listings a little bit. So, I mean, he's the pro, so I'm looking to see what he's doing. And honestly, he goes low in the winter. He goes lower than I expected him to go, and then he goes high in the summer. So, and I think I was initially afraid to go that low. I was like, oh man, what kind of riffraff are we going to get? But so I would say don't be afraid to go low. So you can just get people in there and I'm not saying to, give it away at $15 a night or something stupid, but don't, get people in there, get the reviews rolling, just to get it moving because it's going to pick up once you hit the spring. So don't be too worried about that. It's going to be slow. Just be prepared for that. And then also, take the time. We actually did get started in the middle of the summer. So we had to kind of wait. We already owned it, and then we had to kind of wait until it was empty to do anything to it. So if you're buying now and buying like really heading into the off season, just take the opportunity to make the property the way you want it.
Yeah, there's a certain, and this is exactly what you said, but I'm going to say it a slightly different way. It's almost like, what did you expect? I mean, it's on the beach. You're probably going to be pretty empty in the wintertime. And to that point, I also want to point out the fact that if they, because a lot of folks say, well, maybe some folks will go take the other way. Maybe it's a good time to buy because nobody's paying attention, nobody's getting any bookings, and nobody wants to deal with it in the wintertime. I disagree there too, because if there was a better time to, in other words, if there was a ton of deals out there in September because nobody's buying in September, everybody would find out about that, and then there would no longer be any deals in September. So that it doesn't work that way either, really. And I would, dare I say again, a long-term rental fan. I think that you've got sounds like some Class C long-term rentals, and so I equate it to that. Like, what's going to happen? What's the worst that can happen? You're probably already dealing with that at some capacity with the long terms. They move out and it's completely, there's 6 holes in the wall and the floors are disgusting and things like that. Not every time, of course. I love my tenants. But you get in the business long enough, you kind of get used to that kind of stuff. And so I agree with Joe, and I want to hear Joe's take. I'm going to give one more speech. We don't want to go to $15 because there's a pretty good chance they're going to steal your TV or something like that. But I mean, just put the butts in the seats, lower it to where it's worth, compete with a hotel. In the wintertime, the hotels are empty too. Go enemy method them and see what a unit like yours is renting for. Of course, you've got a kitchen, or a washer and dryer in most cases. So, Joe, how do I get over the fear of having to go too low, maybe in the off season?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I fall very much in that same category of it's more about the occupancy with smaller properties. So if you're coming up to a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom unit, you really want to hit somewhere in that 75 to 80% occupancy just so that you can continue rolling people through. And so in the off season, I really view my properties more as, hey, we're going to test my systems. We're going to keep people coming through so that it's all updated and nice. And we're going to also that's great for your cleaners too, because my cleaners rely on us to continually be booked. And then they prioritize me because I'm putting the most money in their pocket. And so I love being able to do that. And on average, I'd say I might have 1 or 2 bad guests a year. Like we said, you don't want to tank the rates all the way down. But once you start getting some guests that are like, that wasn't the greatest experience, that's kind of when I know I'm hitting my bottom of where the market is at this point in time. And so it's all about how the individual guests treat us is really how we kind of range where's the lowest we're willing to go. And we found too, especially in a post-COVID era, before COVID, it was or during COVID, it was raise them as high as you possibly can because it doesn't matter. It's going to book. And now it's okay, if we have lower rates, the guests are actually pretty good. And so again, we've just been focusing on occupancy. And so getting over the fear can be a little difficult. Just be prepared. Someone's going to wreck your unit at some point in time. It's always going to happen. And so we're in that business, and just be prepared for it.
Who cares? You know what I mean? Who cares? You get to the point where it's what's my analogy here? I'm going to go way over the top. And here's why. Joe is about to become a father. So with rental real estate, which I'm so excited about.
Congratulations, Joe.
Thanks, guys. I'm really excited.
My daughter just turned 5, so I've been texting Joe constantly about how much I'm crying about that. But here's what it's like, Joe. When you get if you've been in rental real estate long enough, with these tenants or guests or whatever that may do a little bit of damage here and there, it gets to be old hat. It's almost like you get to the point where you can eat a chocolate bar while you're changing a diaper. Which quote from my grandmother, dangerous. May she rest in peace. So anyway, you'll get to that point, Joe, very soon. Here they come, those diapers, man. Now that we're on the topic of seasonality, Meg, talk to me about the seasonality in your market. When is it empty, and when can I expect to be pretty full?
So the Outer Banks, we really do see an uptick in folks coming to visit, really starting the weekend of St. Patrick's Day. There's a really big parade here that happens. And it really does start bringing in, we see so many out-of-state plates really beginning that weekend. And then, of course, you start seeing the people who are coming here for the spring breaks. And, those all are, whether it's around a holiday or into the month of April. Then you've got towards the end of April, you're getting people. And then, ultimately, when it really hits hard is going to be your Memorial Day weekend. And usually people talk about that Memorial Day to Labor Day, that those are going to be the peak seasons. But ultimately, you really are going to start seeing people coming mid-March. And then, like Joe was talking about that bell curve, August, it's going to start selling back down. The multi-generational families, you're going to have kids that are going back to school. But we actually get a lot of people who are either empty nesters or, dual income with no children, folks that are coming down and, all their friends are coming. So even through September, you're still seeing a lot of people coming down and even into October, I would say. I know that back in we don't need to go back because that's not where we are. But I know October, over the last few years, there's been a lot of people still coming.
Yep. Okay. Leah and Omar, same speech. And then I'll have, because technically you and Joe are in the same market, but Leah and Omar, what are you seeing on your 2-bedroom condo in the Carolina Beach market as far as when the people start coming and when does it slow down, et cetera?
Similar. It really picked up in March. I would say even towards the beginning of March. It picked up in March and then it just keeps going up until about mid-August. I mean, even though we're 100% occupied in August because of our full week, it's not at the same price the last week of August. It does actually start to taper off because the kids are back in school. But then it continues on through the fall. I'd say even, through it's pretty strong still through September and then really starts tapering off October. And then
do you get Christmas and Thanksgiving?
We got Thanksgiving. We actually didn't get Christmas last year. We got New Year's. We got Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Joe, anything to add there on the seasonality?
No, I mean, really hit the nail on the head right there. There's still kind of some peaks in the off season. Again, New Year's, Christmas, things like that you can fight for. But your other like nights, that's where you're really going to start testing the bottom of like, hey, we're going to see how low are we comfortable going. And then that's also a great time just to work on your properties too. Like, especially when you're running as much occupancy as we're doing. I mean, we need the break on my unit so that we can get them ready for the next season. And so we do focus more of that in kind of February, early March is whenever we really go in and make sure they're all dialed back in for the next season. But, any additional repairs you want to do, it's way easier to block out a week, 2 weeks in the off season than, you're just throwing money away if you do that in the summer.
Yeah. And now is the time to do that. I actually am walking my properties now, the ones that I can get to easily, meaning September-ish. I'm walking and taking notes on what needs to be done in January, February, and I'll start lining those folks up now. I like, for instance, and I have we have a podcast coming out on that, which, depending on when you're listening to this, check me out, Short-Term Rental Management Podcast. We actually do seasonal podcast every quarter to kind of get people ready for what's coming. And I just really like seasons in general. But what I'll do is I'll walk and make a list, and things that are always on my list: repaint the stairwell. Every vacation rental I have that has a stairwell, it gets tore up. It's the suitcases. They're dragging the suitcases up. That's if it's sheetrock, like in a cabin. If you've got tongue and groove, it's not really as big a deal. But if you're dealing with just regular stair treads and sheetrock on the stairwell, paint it. That's when you're going to look at maybe replacing your deadbolt, because those deadbolts are just not going to last as long as you think they are, especially if you're brand new and you think you go out and you buy this $300 deadbolt and you think you're done forever. It doesn't work like that. They're going to break. They get a lot of wear and tear. It's the first thing that people touch when they get to your house. And usually they push way more buttons than they need to, and they just wear out, So I don't know that I'll do that every year, but I might, depending, especially on a beach market where things can get a little rusty. And I know, Meg, you deal with the rust in your market as well. But yeah, this is the time to do that and get things ready for January and February to get folks to. Because another thing is that's when all the workers are busy, because the properties are not. So you need to line them up, 2, 3, 4 months ahead of time to get on their calendar. Leah, I want to go back to something there where you said at the end of August was less money. Was it more difficult how did that go down? At least this year, because we're going through it right now. Was it an, oh crap, I got to lower the rate in the August thing, or did it book pretty early?
It booked early. Price Labs set it lower.
So you were just doing min base max on Price Labs and found the sweet spot. Okay, cool.
So I guess Price Labs just already knew it should be lower. That's what I'm assuming. We actually did go there the last week in August last year, because when we purchased, there actually was a gap. And I mean, possibly we could have got it booked, but that was going to be our personal first time to get in and stay at the property. So we blocked it off and we went. And I would say the island was not super busy that last week in August. Like we thought, oh God, we're going in the summer. And yeah, that last week in August is just a little bit slower.
But the weather was great.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite.
It's not going to book. It's going to book. People are still coming, but it's just this, I feel like there's like a peak season and then there's like a peak season. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. I live in Florida and my favorite time of year is September and October if there's no hurricane, which we're about to get into. But the weather is so nice and there's no people where I live, and I'm in a vacation town as well, in the Panhandle near Destin, Florida. But speaking of, let's talk about hurricanes. We're actually going through one right now. Slightly off topic here, but what do you do? What's your preparation plan there, Joe, for if it's coming? What do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really depends on how bad the storm is. So the storm that's hitting us, it's actually just going to be a tropical storm by the time it gets here. It was hitting Florida as a category 2, category 3, I think, and then coming up and just kind of grazing the side of us. And so for us, 50-ish mile an hour winds and rain, it's really just more of an inconvenience. And so we make sure that everything that's outside on porches is secured down or brought inside. And we have a number of guests that are just going to be weathering the storm. Now, we do have some guests that we're supposed to be checking in on. It's hitting on Thursday. And so we offer them to, hey, you might want to consider leaving early, or you might want to consider checking in a day late. But we have a lot of clients that are still like, hey, we're coming and we want to do it either way. And we're happy campers. So our biggest concern is coordinating with our cleaners. And so just making sure that we've got everything dialed in on them being able to get there if there is an issue. And so it's a kind of take it as it comes, but we hold really, really fast to our cancellation policies. And we offer all of our guests, when they book initially with us, to buy insurance. And if they don't buy insurance and we have a hurricane come through, you booked a beach house in the middle of the hurricane season. And so that's a risk they're taking, and we're very upfront about it. But we get tons of SAP stories trying to get out of it.
You nailed it. Well, did we miss anything? Meg, anything to add to the conversation on pricing?
No, Joe. I mean, you guys have been amazing today. I love having our guests today. They've had some really great points that they talked about. And Joe hit it on the hurricane stuff. I mean, this has been a great call. I don't know that I have anything more to add.
All right. Well, let's recap. Okay. First of all, come to Management Monday. You buy a house with the shop and I'll teach you everything you need to know. All right. Now you got to go to these rock stars to make that happen, obviously. Number 2, there are pricing softwares out there. We didn't really cover that too much today, but let's throw that out there. There are softwares that will do this stuff for you. Price Labs being the biggest, most popular these days. And there's a Wheelhouse, Beyond Pricing. The danger there is that you can't set it and forget it. You just can't. You got to manage your property, and you got 365 nights a year. That's a huge difference with long-term rental. Long-term rental, you got one price for 12 months, and then it goes up 5% or whatever the next year, 3%. Who knows? But big difference there. You got to fill. You got 2 platforms, so that's 365 times 2. Obviously, the pricing software will make that easier for you, so you don't have to do it twice. Which Joe and I used, back in the day when we first started, we did have to do that. But just showing my gray hair at this point. And minimum night stay, open to interpretation. I think a lot of folks fall into that. I'm going to do, especially in a beach market like this, I'm going to do 7 nights min all the time. And it's working out for Leah and Omar. Of course, they don't have a choice, and it's fine for them, and it's working great. And it can be easier. Like I said, I'm jealous because the less personalities you have to deal with. But to me, you got to work it. If the property managers are doing 7-night stays and you don't have to, you got a huge advantage right there. Boom. You got twice as many people that could be looking at your property, because most of those property managers are going to, in these markets, they're going to be doing 7-day mins, especially in the summertime, So, Leah and Omar, what did we miss? Anything you want to say to the lovely listener? Omar, come on, buddy.
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
I mean, like I say, it kind of depends. For minimum night stays, if you have an HOA that's paying attention, or if you have an HOA at all, you obviously have more freedom when you have places like Joe's where there's no HOA involved. I mean, he's his own HOA, can make his own rules. So yeah, that's just something I keep in mind, I guess, when you're purchasing. What's the HOA rule? Do they enforce it? Do they even, you know what I mean? Because you can check with that with the enemy method as well. You can get an answer there. If no one else is obeying that rule, you can just see that there's no enforcement of it. So yeah, I guess it varies.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Enemymethod.com if you're unfamiliar with the enemy method. Joe, anything on the way out? I'm going to miss you guys. I hate that this is the last one. We'll do some updates as time goes by. But Joe, words of wisdom. Knock me on my rear end, man.
Knock you on your rear end. Oh man, just do it. Just go out there and have fun. I mean, like, everybody manages differently, and we're all having a great time doing it. And so it's very abundant. There's plenty of people coming, and we just have a fun time doing this, guys. So come hang out with us in the shop and keep rocking.
Yep, I agree that real estate is a $3 trillion industry. More than enough money for everybody to go around if you're working hard and doing your job. And yeah, come see us at the shop. And what else did we miss? Yeah, that's it, I guess. I hate this. Parting is such sweet sorrow. Next time I see Joe, he might be a dad.
Craziness.
Yeah. Anyway, we love you. Don't overthink it.